After World War One, many Marxist scholars were dismayed by the failed prediction of a revolution in Germany. Germany was in a sorry state. High inflation had devalued their currency to the point you needed a wheelbarrow of money to buy a loaf of bread. Despite their constant promotion of the Marxist ideals of a more equal society, people just didn't seem willing to embrace communist principles. They were perplexed. If people could not see the failure of capitalism when the population were confronted with such extreme living conditions, then the utopian dream of installing a Marxist-led government throughout Europe was all but over. In 1930, Max Horkheimer recruited many academics to find out why people would not embrace radical change. This group became known as the Frankfurt School. In 1930, one aspect of the modern era that fascinated them was the rise of mass culture, which was being brought about by the increase in technological developments like cinema, radio and art. Here they witnessed European countries becoming more and more alike, and it seemed obvious that media could be used as a persuasive tool to spearhead social change. The conclusion they came to was that technology allowed the public to sit passively before cultural content rather than actively engage with one another for entertainment, as they had done in the past. The scholars theorized that this experience made people intellectually inactive and politically passive, as they allowed mass-produced ideologies and values to wash over them and infiltrate their consciousness. In this sense, media acted like a subliminal messaging system, feeding the minds of the passive observer with messages they might object to should they engage in an active debate on the subject. This they blamed on people's reluctance to move away from a capitalist society. Advertisements and cinema immerse people in a consumer-based lifestyle, subliminally convincing them to embrace the perceived benefits of capitalism. Trying to convince a hypnotized populace to transfer over to a communist ideology under such conditions was, they thought, pointless. They began to realize that if they wanted to change how people thought, they needed to exert heavy influence over the media people consumed. Their plan was to implement Antonio Gramsci's theory of cultural hegemony, which in essence is concerned with how to impose a worldwide view that becomes the accepted cultural norm, using media as a means of implementing ideas to a passive audience. One of the core theories they developed was called critical theory. This basically focused on how to force social change by dismantling the currently accepted structures of Western society. The theory was simple. Criticize every pillar of Western culture: family, democracy, common law, freedom of speech, and anything else of value. The hope was that these pillars would crumble under the pressure, allowing them to rebuild society within a Marxist image. Change could not happen until everything of value had been dismantled. By the 1950s, one of the biggest hurdles for them was trying to convince people of the benefits of Marxist economics when they could openly see the failings of the Russian and Chinese economies. They decided to completely shift their focus onto the Freudian concept of psychological repression. During the 1930s, German philosopher and Frankfurt School member Herbert Marcuse was preoccupied by the problem of who could replace the reluctant working class as the new vanguards of the Marxist revolution. Marcuse believed he had found a solution. It would be a victim coalition of minorities, blacks, women and homosexuals. In 1965, Marcuse published Repressive Tolerance, which argued that the tolerance of all values and ideas meant the repression of correct ideas. It was here that Marcuse coined the term liberating tolerance. It called for tolerance of any ideas coming from the left, but complete intolerance of those from the right. One of the overreaching themes of the Frankfurt School was total intolerance for any viewpoint but its own. You may have noticed this is the basic trait of today's political correctness believers. We look around now and wonder why everything seems to have been turned upside down. We are more divided than ever before, and this is exactly what has been orchestrated. Who now is pushing for social change? The LGBT community, feminist groups, green activists? These self-convinced victim groups are now convinced they are pioneering a revolutionary shift in society, unaware that they are being used to subjugate the West into a Marxist dictatorship. These people believe they have the solution to society's ills, and they will stop at nothing to bring about a revolution they believe is in everyone's best interest. An ideology that embraces the repression of opposition will not suddenly embrace a form of democratic socialism if it gains power.